Hi everyone, and thank you for clicking on my video response. And today I'm discussing the escalating battle of critical theory and the implications for the nurse educator. Critical theory was once an obscure academic venture that has its roots in psychology, sociology, and in an increasing way, education. Critical theory originated in the 1970s to serve as a lens for establishing the idea that there are assumptions that are systematically held and perpetuated that have and continue to oppress underrepresented groups in society. Each of these groups spawns its own critical theory. Merriam and Baumgartner detail perspectives such as critical multiculturalism, critical race theory, post-colonialism, queer theory, postmodernism, and feminist theory. As a future educator, I think that I would be remiss not to focus much of my discussion on the intensifying debate around critical race theory, or CRT. As of late, CRT has gained an explosion of interest as it is one of the central rallying points for President Biden and the current administration. As a result, school district meetings around the United States have become battlegrounds for parents accusing their schools of practicing racism by teaching the idea that racism in the United States is a long-standing issue. This is going back to Brown versus Board of Education and the civil rights movement of the 1960s. Merriam and Baumgartner warned the reader that racism is still a real and ongoing practice that has reached an endemic point. No longer can it manifest in the daily lives of minorities or underrepresented groups, such as the LGBTQ, but it can exist systemically, infiltrating into professional forums, undermining efforts to level the playing field. Very recently, society faced a reckoning with systemic racism with the murder of George Floyd. The jury ruled that Derek Chauvin guilty of all 3 counts, becoming the first white police officer to be convicted of murdering a black person. With regard to school board meetings I mentioned earlier, here are archived recordings from the New York Times.
I will campaign against anyone and everyone who attempts to indoctrinate my children into the most racist of racist ideas.
And the words that they've thrown out have been accusing the school district of practicing racism and accusing the school district of penalizing their children for being white.
I will do everything I possibly can to fight to the bitter end until you prove to me that you are not teaching my children that they are racist just because they're white.
Accusing the school district of being woke.
You are now training our children to be social justice warriors and to loathe our country and our history.
Held captive to far left and even communist and Marxist ideas.
This is indeed the American version of the Chinese Cultural Revolution. The critical race theory has its roots in cultural Marxism. It should have no place in our school.
What critical theory says to me as an educator is that there is a lot of work to be done. Given Merriam and Baumgartner, New Approaches to Adult Learning was written on the heels of George Floyd's murder, the strategies that mention, quote, weaving anti-racist pedagogical practice and brainstorming practical ideas to fight racism, end quote, feel perhaps a little bit underwhelming. However, it does speak to the truth of the matter that systemic racism is a very tough problem to root out. When I listen to All the Poor and Powerless, it could be said that the third line, quote, and all of the thieves will come confess, suggests that the world's problems are the blame of some person. But I'm looking at the overall message of the song. This song is a cry for help amidst an overwhelmingly perverse problem of social injustice. The, quote, unworthy who, quote, hurt with nothing left. Those are crying for God's mercy as society hopefully bands together to do right by everyone. So thank you for listening, and I look forward to your replies.